Today I want to talk about this CJRB Pyrite. I've had two different versions of this knife. This is the second one. I haven't used either one a ton, but I have used them some, and I have played with them a lot. So first I want to talk about the steel. I just want to get this out of the way. This is an ARRPM9 steel. ARRPM9 steel is a proprietary steel to Artisan Cutlery and is only used by them, which there was some community drama about some time ago. Apparently that steel was initially advertised as being powder metallurgy. Larrin Thomas on Knife Steel Nerds recently did an evaluation of this steel. This was actually not super recent, it was several months ago. But he did an evaluation of this steel and determined that it was misnamed. It's not really a powder steel, it's really kind of a spray form steel that it's just kind of, in his opinion, misadvertised. And Artisan Cutlery, who is the owner of CJRB, came out and basically apologized. They said they didn't have any bad intentions about doing that. It wasn't their intent to misrepresent what the steel was, that they were, basically they said they were misinformed or didn't understand appropriately what was going on to begin with. So they kind of owned up to it, but whether or not you think that that's a shady business practice or that Artisan Cutlery was doing deliberate misinformation, then have your opinion about that. I don't know for sure if they did or didn't, but here I am still buying this knife. So we'll get that out of the way now. So it's not a powder steel. It is a spray form steel, and there has been that drama, so you can form your own opinion about that. If you want more information on it, just look at Knife Steel Nerds video on ARRPM9 and you can get all the information about that you'd ever want. So ARRPM9 steel. Before any of that Larrin Thomas stuff came out, I had tested ARRPM9 several times. The majority of my testing was on a CJRB Crag. And on that knife, my friend and I got very good results with ARRPM9. On my rope test, which is 1/4 inch rope and cutting soda box cardboard, the knife got 350 cuts compared to S30 and S35, which I've tested many times, which usually gets between 210 and 250. So ARRPM9 at 350 got 35% more, whatever the math is on that. Anyway, it got 100 cuts more when we're talking about 250 to 300. So that's very good. I have tested and carried ARRPM9 on different knives several times, and I've had no problems with edge retention. In my opinion, it's very good. I know some of you may have had other experiences, but that's just where I'm at with what I've found. So that brings us to the CJRB Pyrite. I love these things. They're quite affordable. This thing was available on Amazon for $29 to $30. They're very compact, very narrow, thin. They're a tiny bit heavy, but they're small enough that it's not too noticeable for me. Deep carry pocket clip. They have a nearly kind of Warncliffe shaped blade. It does have some belly, but it's pretty straight compared to the Native, which clearly has a more rounded belly. Really like the point, the tip on these things is awesome. It's very narrow. Right here, this steel really thins out. A wide, flat blade. This thing came very sharp. It shaved like crazy, but the edge was very polished and glassy, or smooth, however you want to say it. It had no bite at all, none. I mean, I could almost run my finger. With pretty considerable pressure without really cutting myself on the edge. I have since resharpened it, and it has a very nice toothy edge. It took a very nice toothy edge. It was really easy to sharpen. No problems with that at all. So overall, I really like this knife. I think it's awesome. I think it's super worth the money. As far as the steel, I've been super happy with ARRPM9. I haven't had any problems with this one. I think since that community drama happened, that the price on, as far as I can tell just off memory, how it serves me, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think the prices on these ARRPM9 knives dropped 25% after that kind of drama happens. So we can be the beneficiaries of that if we choose. But I've been really happy with this steel. That's just my opinion, my experience. But I have some information kind of about the action on this knife, which I will go into now, but just know that you can open this with the thumb stud and flick it if that's how you like to do it. The button, I mean, you can flip it with the button if you're into that. Push the button and give it a little flip and it'll open. So the action's very good. It's very quiet, it's very smooth, but I have some thoughts on this, which I will go into now. So some things I like about this knife the most are the action and the grip. I really like the choil. You have to be very careful because this part is sharpened and it will cut you if you're not careful. But this knife offers very many variety of grips. I have no problem with this knife in any of the grips. In this grip here, like the Killer Slasher edge toward me reverse grip, the knife feels like it might wobble a little bit this way just because of flatness, but that's not an issue. It really doesn't do it. Even if I hold it lightly, it doesn't be any problem at all. There's enough here for me to reinforce my thumb. I can choke down here. It's awesome. Another thing I really like about this, I have no problem with this button lock. My finger never comes in contact with it while I'm using it. It doesn't be a problem. It's really out of the way. So there are some things here. One, this button requires a little bit of extra push to actually engage. So I'm holding this down so that gravity will be able to drop the knife if necessary, but I can push this thing somewhat, and you can see that even with gravity, it doesn't swing the knife open. This thing is pushing that far. Sorry, I can't hold more still. This thing is actually pushing part way and nothing's happening. So you have to actually deliberately, if I use the flat of my thumb, the flat of my thumb almost stops me and I have to push really hard to get it to do its thing. You almost have to kind of deliberately use the tip of your thumb, at least I do, the shape of my fingers. I almost have to deliberately use the tip of my thumb to get that to push far enough to engage, or I have to push deliberately hard to get it to swing open. So in my opinion, with my experience with this knife, this thing is actually quite secure. Now, there is still the problem that this thing comes open this far without the swing open problem. The tip does still come out. You still could snag it. It still could get snagged on something, your pocket seam, something. And if this is bouncing around in a purse or something, if somehow this got pushed partway, this does come open enough that something could engage it and start it in motion and swing the blade open. So it's not totally secure. Something else I like about this knife is, for me anyway, the blade is still quite large. This is not a puny tiny thing. Here it is with a native 5, which I just happen to have here with me. It's a decent size. So I'm just lining up the cutting edge here. I'm not lining it up with the pivot. At the pivot, the blades are like that compared to the native 5. The cutting edge, it's like that. Something else I like about this knife is it's easy for me to fudge up 1 or 2 fingers on this choil. You have to be very careful. Again, you need to be careful to keep your finger away from this nub, and everybody's hands are different, so you may not be able to do this. But I can put my finger here, kind of pinch it like a claw. I can put my finger here, or I can put my finger here on this side, and that enables me to kind of create a stopping point. For example, in a box. So all knives kind of do this, by the way. This is just something I'm pointing out here because it works very well. It creates a stopping point, so if there's stuff in here that you may not want to cut, if you cut into the box, sometimes you could over penetrate and do the whole, whoosh, and cut in there. Can you do that with a native? Sure, yeah, you absolutely can. You totally can do that with the native. When I do it here, so with the native, just because it's shorter, I have to use this grip, which is actually quite secure. But this knife is considerably slicier in my experience than the native 5. So there's that. The jimping on this knife is these grooves, the top grooves are quite large and rounded. So they really don't provide much traction. In fact, I don't think they really do anything. They don't really stop my finger from moving. They may give you some indexing to know where things are at, but you should know that anyway. You can feel the thumb stud, you know where the handle's at because you're holding onto it. So it doesn't really provide any traction. I think it's kind of useless, but it also doesn't hurt at all. So there's no downside to it. I mean, stuff might get stuck in there. It might get gunked up if you are cutting food or dirty stuff or something like that. It might get gunked up in there, where if this was just flat, it wouldn't happen. It just doesn't have much traction. So I think the jimping's useless. I don't care about jimping as long as it doesn't hurt me. If you're a person who feels like you need jimping, then you'd probably be disappointed in this one because it doesn't work very well. But there it is. The point on this thing is exceptional. This is an awesome, awesome knife for doing scratching, poking type stuff. Really narrows down nicely. Really, really makes for a nice pointy point. So the overall blade shape on this thing is awesome. Super happy with it. The action's amazing. I was going to comment as a downside, this bounce back. This thing does have some bounce back, and to me it was a really big deal, but I later figured out that it's because I'm still depressing the button. And this happens with compression locks and stuff too, or axis locks if you keep them pulled. But if you keep the button down, then it will bounce out. But if you figure out how to let go of that button once the thing gets into motion, then it doesn't ever bounce back. So some of it's just kind of getting used to it sort of thing. In my experience, I tested this bounce back thing for quite a while when I was thinking about doing this review, and I noted that with me and my manipulation of this knife, the bounce back thing happened a lot. So I am having to train myself to let go of the button kind of before the knife can hit the bottom, and then you have no bounce back. So the bounce back issue does happen with me, but it's because I keep the button pressed too long. Just be aware of it. Clip carries super deep. Those screws are totally flush. Super awesome. Knife's quite thin. Again, let's look at it next to a native. Much thinner than the native. It's quite a slim, narrow knife with a wide blade that doesn't take up a bunch of wide space when it's closed, and that's really awesome. So the action on this thing, amazing. I really like it. Its pinch grip here is awesome. This is super, super easy to wield for me anyway. My fingers never come in contact with the buttons inadvertently in any way. You can push this part way down and nothing happens. You have to deliberately, it's a pretty deliberate motion to get this thing coming open. So I really like that about this knife. So in closing, I think this is a great knife. I think it's awesome. It's available in ARRPM9 steel, SF2 or whatever their other steel is called. They call that an upgrade. It does cost more. It's supposedly some kind of comparable to 154 CM. I haven't used that. I don't have any experience with it. And this knife is also available in S90V. So the ARRPM9 versions run about 30 bucks. The upgraded SF2 steel ones are about 50-ish, depending on what kind of handle material you choose or whatever. And the S90V ones go about 106, I think, 106 to 110. For now, the only information I have about CJRB is on ARRPM9 steel, which I've been very happy with, and mostly on the Krag and on this Pyrite. Very happy with this knife, very happy with the steel. I have absolutely no problems with this knife or this steel, and I think at $30, this knife is an extraordinarily good value. That's my opinion, that's my take on it. Thank you so much for watching.